Viewers, we've just heard so many people talking about the public-facing side of Mr. Ratan Tata. We all encounter him in our daily lives as this titan, as this icon, but let's talk a little bit more about the person behind the brand. And there is no better person to speak to than Suhail Seth, who is, of course, a brand guru, is also an author, and he has known Mr. Ratan Tata since his childhood. His family and the Tatas, especially Ratan Tata, had a big connect. Now, Mr. Seth, thank you for speaking to me. You've known Mr. Tata practically all your life. What is it that you admired about Mr. Tata, and what was it about him that left an impression on you?
I think his most innate quality was decency. Decency beyond compare, decency in everything he did, the abject belief in dignity, in human welfare. You know, we all know stories, Rahul, about his business prowess. We know about how he took a group which was at that time 5.1 billion market cap to, by the time he left, 101 billion. Those stories are known, but what is not known is the intensely private person that he was, not because he abhorred people. He was just a private, decent human being. And for him, compassion was the benchmark of humanism. It wasn't wealth, it wasn't conquering territories, it wasn't geographical business expansion. It was always about people. It was about giving back. See, he also, Rahul, came from a legacy of Jamshedji Tata and Sadhurab Tata, where the entire fortune of the House of Tata was only done in order to pay back to communities that were less privileged, people who were less abled, societies that needed succor. So to that extent, he was special, and he will always be special. He'll be special because he was a special human being. He was a dignified human being. He was courageous, fortitude, and tremendously, tremendously kind. You know, Rahul, this is not the kind of kindness you see in people. People are often, swayed by power, they're swayed by awards, they're swayed by honors. He wasn't. For him, his life was about dogs, animals. It was about reading. It was about spending quality time with people he loved. It was about seeing that businesses always had a moral and compassion compass. So in that sense, he was very different from the people that you and I would, ordinarily meet. And for me personally, Rahul, I'm privileged. I'm blessed. My family is blessed. My little daughter is blessed. My wife is blessed. We all spend hours with him. And it was his generosity. It was his indulgence. He needn't have. I first met him in 1990. That's 34 years ago, Rahul. I'm 61. Half my life, more than half my life, I've known this man. And when we lost him yesterday, for me, it was like a third parent had left. Am I orphaned? No, because I think we will all strive to keep up whatever we can of his legacy. We'll try and be good human beings. I know we'll never be like him. And that's why I'm saying, Rahul, no matter what you might say, he defined India. He defined Indianness. He was the quintessential Indian. Because at the heart of being Indian is being decent, is being kind, is being compassionate, is being caring for the less privileged. And I'm sorry if I sound this way,
No.
Really,
you have every right. I mean, you're making me emotional, to be honest.
But what should one say? What can one say about a giant of a man? What should I talk about?
No, it's difficult.
His prowess in fighter jets, his love for animals, the way he set up cancer centers one after the other.
Now, don't hold back. Don't hold back, Mr. Seth. Look, very few got as close to him as you did, and I'm sure he revealed a very different side of his personality to you. I mean, tell us a little bit about that side that has been cloaked behind doors, so to speak.
So one of the things that people would never associate him with, he was an outstanding prankster and a great mimic. In fact, I used to often tell him that, Mr. Tata, you should start doing theater. He was just brilliant. And his turn of phrase and his wit was just outstanding. But again, Rahul, we were privileged. Some of us were privileged to see that side of him, to see that facet of him.
It's true.
He largely led a very private, very reticent, very reclusive life. But it was a life that he chose. He chose that path. I tweeted today, Rahul, saying that Ratan Tata didn't have a family. I mean, he was a bachelor. But today, 1.4 billion people have mourned for him. I landed from London last night and I flew to Bombay early this morning. I've just come back to Delhi. I have not seen such an outpouring of grief. I have not seen common men, common women, children stand in long queues. For me, that is representative of the impact that man had without even meeting most of them. It is their belief in the tenacity, in the purposefulness of this man. And if that isn't a big tribute to Ratan Naval Tata, what else is?
Look, he was always surrounded by people, as you say, and there are, of course, today, even after his passing, hundreds and thousands of mourners. But was he lonely? I mean, he never married and he was a bachelor. Did he reach out to you for succor at any time? Did he sort of expose his vulnerable self to you at any point?
He would. I mean, I remember when my mother was first detected with cancer, Mr. Tata's mother also had cancer. The thoughtfulness. I think he was coming back from Singapore, wherever it was, and he said, look, I've got some flaxseed oil for Shubh, that was my mother's name. He needn't have, but he cared. He cared deeply. The day my mother passed, his was the first call. And I didn't even know, because, we didn't obviously start telling people immediately. Yeah. But he knew. But that's the imprint of the man. He genuinely cared for people he loved. And he also cared for people he didn't know. So care was his umbilical cord with humanity. So, Rahul, I won't be exaggerating when I say humanism and humanity has lost its most formidable champion. India has lost its most valiant, proud, loving son. When he went out and bought chorus and Jaguar Land Rover, when the Indian flag was fluttering at the pier, these were proud moments for him. These were moments of celebration. But he was always a quiet a celebrator, if I can use that word. And that, to my mind, is a great tribute.
Thank you, Mr. Seth, because those were moments for us all Indians to cherish also. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Viewers, let's move on to talk a little bit about who the person was behind the Titan. What were his views on the world? What did Ratan Tata laugh about, joke about? Who made him laugh? What made him tick? What were his tastes in art and literature? And the other finer things that he surrounded himself with, including friends, viewers. Let's speak to Gurcharan Das, author, chronicler of India Inc. and corporate maven, and obviously Shobha De. No conversation about anyone who moves and shakes Mumbai or Bombay, as it was called in the past, can be complete without talking to Shobha De, journalist, author, TV personality, celebrity. I mean, she's just about everything that one could expect to be in one lifetime. So Shobha De, you probably know Ratan Tata. You probably knew who he hung out with, so to speak. What was his life like?
I'd love to say that I was a close friend of his, but that is entirely not correct. All I know is that he was a proud Mumbaikar. He's part of Amchi Mumbai, and that was our biggest and strongest connection as someone who used to meet him, well, not frequently, but certainly often enough at social events, more so in the past, not so often in the last few years, where he hasn't been terribly well. But he was the one exceptional quality about him. The one word, if someone were to ask me, it would be decency. Here was a man, a billionaire with the biggest heart, who always, but always had a kind word for people who approached him. He did not surround himself with bodyguards. He was a Mumbaikar. He was so much in sync with the city. He was like any one of us in that sense, just normal, natural. He'd walk into his favorite restaurant close by to where we live. In fact, we both lived in South Mumbai. It's called Thai Pavilion. It's at the President Hotel. And he would wait for his table like anyone else. He'd be at an airport well before he started flying private and queue up like all the other passengers, holding onto his own bags. No entourage, no Z security, no living in the ivory tower. You could walk up to him at the US Club when he was with his dogs or with a close friend. There was something so normal and natural and likable about him. You could talk to him about just about anything, but he really, really came into his own when you talk to him about his beloved four-legged companions and pets. And if you were a dog lover, as we are in our family, as my daughters, my son, we all are. We love our pets. We call them family, not pets. He was just so accessible and so full of kindness. I think that is really what makes him very special to me, because billionaires tend to be very badnaam these days. But here was a guy who was not a billionaire first. He was a humanist and just a regular guy with an incisive mind, a brilliant mind, and honestly, like I said earlier, the biggest heart. He will always have a very special place in my life, in the lives of my children, in the lives of my family, and we were just so honored to know him.
What made him beat to this different drum, Gurcharan Das?
I'm telling you, it has to be.
My
It
own
has to be Mumbai.
experience. Are you asking me, Rahul, or?
Yes,
I'm
Gurcharan
sorry I
Das, yes.
interrupted.
I'll come back to Shobha Day in just a few seconds. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
You know, my own personal experience with Ratan was brief but memorable. I was on the board of one of the Tata companies. At one meeting, Freddie Mehta, who was the chairman of the board, invited Ratan, who was a young man, to to join in the meeting. And all I remember of Ratan at that meeting was that he was amazingly shy and modest. There wasn't a hint that he was a Tata at this meeting. And but 15 minutes later into this meeting enters who but a dog. And as Shobha has predicted, that dog came in very quietly, no fuss, nobody bothered to even pay attention. But that dog went and sat by Ratan's feet. And the meeting continued as if nothing had happened. It was the most natural thing to have a dog in a board meeting of that kind. Now, that is a personal recollection, Rahul. But why I would today mourn uh, Ratan, it would not only be for his wonderful human qualities, such as the one that Shobha has talked about, but because I think that uh, Tatas, uh, Tatas remain in India today the conscience keeper of India Incorporated. They symbolize integrity, philanthropy, and professionalism. And some of the actions that Ratan took in his life reinforced that belief. One example was that soon after he took over from JRD in 1991, which was the perfect time because finally India had opened up and we had finally got our economic freedom. And but Ratan had to first fix his house in order before those opportunities could be cashed in. Ratan had a boardroom battle in his hands. He had three of the most powerful companies in the group run by three satraps. Satraps is a nice Persian word,
That's right.
you know, which implies whatever, but it has a negative connotation. These guys, I'm talking about Rusi Modi at Tata Steel, Darbari Seth at Tata Chemicals, and Ajit Kerkar at India Hotels. And these guys were very competent people, and even JRD was in awe of them. But their egos were bigger than the Tatas. And Ratan thought this was wrong, that an institution should be above any one person. And so he engaged in a boardroom battle, and actually an inspired thought. They had a rule which was never implemented of a 70-year-old leaving the board, and he implemented that rule with gusto, removing not only these three people but others as well. And it sent a good message, I think.
Right.
It opened up opportunities for young people. But that's another legacy of his.
Let me circle back to Shobha Day. Shobha Day, in this world of Instagrammable excess, so to speak, why don't they make them like Ratan Tata anymore?
That's what makes him unique, Rahul. He was a class apart. And it was this class that was evident in almost every single thing that he did, whether it was his philanthropy, which was quiet. But I think his glorious and shining hour was his leadership during the terror attacks in Mumbai, where he demonstrated what it means to be Ratan Tata, leading his team hands on, tirelessly, for hours and hours, making sure every single employee and their families were comforted. And that commitment continues even today. There were sides to him, the humanitarian sides to him, which I find so endearing, so extremely unique. It was more than just a philanthropy with a big name where you're projecting something to promote yourself or your brands. Not at all. There was a quiet class about him. I would say he was the classiest billionaire that India has ever produced, with a vision to match. He could be ruthless, and that's part of good leadership too. I mean, when he had to take tough decisions, he didn't exactly shy away from them. He took what it came, but he also had global ambitions, which when he acquired Tetley, when he acquired Jaguar Land Rover, Chorus, it was an ambition that was full of confidence, that said, here we are, India has arrived. So to be in London at the time and to see a Jaguar cruising past and to tell a snotty British person, oh, there goes one of our cars, I can tell you that was a great thrill, because they'd say, what do you mean it's your car? And we'd say very proudly, yes, of course it's ours, because Ratan Tata, the Tatas own it now, the brand, in case you don't know. He gave us those moments of pride, and he really inspired young India like no other corporate leader, because he spoke their language. He got them and they got him. And they found him so attractive. I mean, he was devastatingly attractive. His aura is incomparable, but it was how he spoke to young India. He spoke their language. When he started his Twitter account, X account, it went nuts. It was insane. For days and days on end, he dominated the space. Why? Because he knew how to communicate. And I think that was one of his great attributes, a great strength to possess for a person who was that global in his stature. but so desi, such a Mumbaikar at the end of it all. I love that about him. He was part of Amchi Mumbai till the very end.
Shobha is very interesting because, uh, you were absolutely and still are beauteous. And it's interesting that you commented on his dashing devil do. Now, I want to ask you, yet he remained a lifelong bachelor. That must have broken quite a few hearts.
Oh, there were a lot of, I'm sure, ladies in Mumbai, some of whom are old friends of mine as well, who were extremely heartbroken at the time. That was, I'm talking about 40 years ago. But eventually the ladies gave up because clearly Ratan was not interested and he was so very focused on what he was doing. And his commitment to what he was doing was so apparent. I don't think he would have had the bandwidth or the time or the energy for the usual Mumbai style romance. But still, it's interesting that Bollywood language still talks about, oh, aap kya samajhte ho, aap kya Tata Birla ho. Those are the two names that keep coming up in dialogues so many years later. And I think Ratan had a lot to do with the magic and the charisma that he gave to the brand.
So one second, I've got to pick you up on this. How did this understated sophisticate fit into the bling of Bombay? I insist on calling it Bombay. My mother went to the school that he attended, and she's always called it Bombay. I'm sorry, Mumbaikars, but I'm at least in this conversation, because he was so much Bombay, wasn't he, Shobha De?
But the bling was something one just, the real Bombay Walas or the Mumbaikars shun bling. They are not
Right.
blingy at all. We leave that to you Delhi Walas.
Okay,
Bling
you're telling
is
me
not
that?
Bombay or Mumbai at all, except for the Arivis, the Novarish. You don't associate class with bling. And if
Right.
anything, if Ratan was anything, it was classy. He would abhor bling, but he liked his beautiful ties and he was always impeccably turned out. And he was very, very charming with the ladies and the gentlemen. And that's it. He was just an old world, old school Mumbai boy, cathedralite. And we are just so proud of his roots. And we do believe that we can take some credit for all of that being Mumbaikars.
So Gurcharan Das, he liked his baubles and he collected quite a few. He collected the Pierre, classy hotel in Manhattan. He collected Jaguar Land Rover. He went out there and picked out the great steel factory in Britain, and there were several other acquisitions. Now, were these vanity purchases, or was he actually doing something here?
Well, certainly Tetley and the car companies were excellent buys. The steel turned out to be a bit messy and probably should have been avoided. But, in those days, I just wanted to remind Shobha that we used to get very proud when the day Jaguar was bought. It was my favorite car of all time. And what we used to call it in our sort of nationalistic fervor, that this was reverse colonialism. Now we are buying you, my dear. This is you are ours. We may have been yours for these 100 years, but
That's right.
now you are ours. The other point I do want to make, however, is that there was an emotional quality, and that's what you're trying to capture, Rahul, in this program. The acquisition of Air India, everybody in Bombay House was horrified, frankly, when Ratan and these guys in Tatas bailed out. Frankly, that's what I call it. They bailed out the Modi government.
Right.
Air India was bleeding every day, a huge amount of money, and they bought it because Air India had been stolen from the Tatas by Nehru's government. And they had run it to the ground. The government, of course, it shouldn't be running airlines.
Okay.
But They ran it to the ground. And I mean, today we hope, let's hope this merger with Vistara will go through well and all. It's going to be very tough. And we're all sort of rooting
Okay.
for Tata's
Let me ask both of
succeeding
you.
with it.
Let me ask both of you. Shobha De, what's that one Tata product that has stayed with you all these years?
The Taj group of hotels for sure, because it's what we are very, very proud of. And as a family, uh, you don't even think twice when there's a marriage coming up or any great occasion. It has to be. I associate that with the Tata Group and all their other products, of course, whether it was their textiles. Tata Textiles had modeled for quite a lot, many of their products back then. And to model for a Tata product was in itself a big, big badge of honor for a young person like myself to say, oh, I'm a Tata model for their textile brands or their cosmetic brands. So definitely. But I would say what Air India, as Gurcharan just pointed out, he restored pride and he also made the Maharaja popular once again. And I hope and pray that the big merger is going to work great for the brand Air India.
Well, I don't have much time, but Gurcharan Das, that same question to you.
Well, yeah, I think I'd put Tata Hotels also, the especially the old lady of Boribanda, the Tata at hotel at Apollo Banda.
Yeah.
The old wing, especially, is a very special place. And frankly, when I started my career, and I got married, and the company was looking for a flat for me. I'd arrived sooner than expected, so they put us up in the Taj Hotel. My wife had never been into a hotel like this ever before, so she was just in seven heaven. But later, I discovered that food was not their strong point. Oberoi's and others had much better food. So they could learn something. And Kamedia used to always remind me
Right.
that, tell that to Ajit Kerkar, that food needs to be improved. And we
Okay,
remember
well,
those days in Bombay.
well,
Um,
they're still lagging in that one department. Let me tell you.
but can I just say one thing
Yes,
though?
yes.
Because I think Shobha has touched a chord about Mumbai and why Bombay people are nicer than Delhi people. And this is because the origins of Bombay were in commerce and the origins of Delhi were feudal.
That's right.
There was an emperor, now we have a CEO who always keeps reminding us that he is the only CEO. And Bombay has 100,000 CEOs. If you don't like one company, you go to the other. But you know why? And ultimately, why commerce is important? Because a business person instinctively understands interdependence.
That's
A
right.
business person has customers,
And there's a
has
service culture.
suppliers, has
You're
employees.
eager to please.
He has
You're
to
eager
look
to sort
after.
of present a less jagged edge and
Exactly.
subsume your
Exactly.
ego. Well,
So
look,
the
I'll leave
best
it at
thing
this.
So
It's
the
been
best thing that's
wonderful.
happened, hey, the best thing that's happened to Delhi is Gurgaon.
Okay, well, look, the best thing that's happening right now is that we're also smiling at a life very well lived. Let's be honest about that. Ratan Tata lived a full life, a beautiful life. He lived it his way, to paraphrase Frank Sinatra. I'll leave it at this. Ms. Day and Mr. Das, thank you very much.
Thank you.